Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. And thank you for joining today's inaugural Charlie's TED Talk. It's a new speaker's, yay! The very first one. And you guys are all here to witness it. So thank you so much for coming. So Charlie's TED Talk is a new speaker series presented by UTD's Center for Asian Studies, highlighting the cultural, economic, and societal impact of Asians in technology. My name is Carol Chen, and I'm honored to be your MC tonight. So we're here today to celebrate the remarkable contributions of Asians in tech, an area where innovation and cultural diversity come together to shape our future. At UT Dallas, we are proud to have a campus where diversity thrives, and Asians account for 1/3 of our student body. This reflects the rich tapestry of backgrounds and ideas that fuel not only the university, but also the tech industry. The Center for Asian Studies at UT Dallas plays a pivotal role in fostering a deeper understanding of Asia and Asian America. Through research, education, and public outreach, the center works to promote the knowledge of the diverse cultures of Asia and the impact they have on the global stage. We are so thrilled to launch this series at UT Dallas, a university known for its cutting-edge research, forward-thinking students, and commitment to fostering a global perspective. Now, before we get into tonight's main event, I want to bring to the stage the brainchild and founding director of UTD's Center for Asian Studies, Dr. Dennis M. Kratz. Hold on, I still have to introduce you. Dr. Kratz has also served as the Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities for 22 years, where he led the expansion of Asian studies, emphasized the importance of education that integrates the arts and humanities with science and technology. Dr. Kratz received his BA from Dartmouth and PhD from Harvard. He has published 4 books, numerous articles, and has lectured internationally on subjects including heroism, epic poetry, translation theory, science fiction, and the convergence of Western and Asian cultures. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dennis Kratz.
Hello, everybody. Were you see? I'm just going to practice my elevator speech. Okay. I know many of you, and I want you to know how thrilled we are, personally, that Charlie and Pauline and Joe and Carol are part of our family now. And the most important member of the family, Alexander. Established in 2019, the Center for Asian Studies is already positioned to benefit not only the students and faculty of the University of Texas at Dallas, but in fact, the larger community and the state of Texas. Our university and area businesses already have multiple mutually beneficial relationships with Asian and Asian American companies and entrepreneurs. We are also a cultural innovation engine here at UTD, an intellectual and artistic estuary of mingling cultures. The center's mission is to act in that environment as a centripetal force for transformational ideas and a facilitator of large interdisciplinary projects, Charlie's Tech Talks being a case in point. Creating deeper knowledge, more productive interactions, and a reputation as a welcoming community helps everyone, socially, educationally, economically. I hope you enjoy and learn much this evening. And for some of you, I'll say, help us help you. Consider supporting the vision and the endeavors of the Center for Asian Studies. Thank you. And now the beast recalls the beauty.
Thank you, Dennis. Please give another round of applause to Dennis Kratz. Now, some of you might be wondering, who's Charlie? Well, Charlie is not only the visionary behind Charlie's TED Talk, but he also happens to be my incredible and very handsome dad. Tonight's event and this entire speaker series is a direct result of his passion for innovation, his commitment to community, and his unwavering belief in the power of technology to shape the future. Without his leadership, none of this would have been possible. Born and raised in Taiwan, Charlie came to the United States in 1980 on a scholarship, bringing with him a few $1,000s, a lot of determination, and a very supportive wife, my mom, Pauline. From there, he earned 2 master's degrees and went on to build several successful companies. As the founder and CEO of DFW Technology, a leading IT service provider, he has helped shape Richardson's tech landscape and fostered innovation in the region. In 2015, Charlie was elected chairman of the Richardson Chamber of Commerce, where he played a pivotal role in establishing Richardson as a high-tech hub. His efforts led to the creation of the Richardson Innovation Quarter, helping to solidify the city's position as an international business capital. His dedication earned him the Citizen Leadership Award and the prestigious title of Citizen of the Year, Richardson's highest community honor. Through his work as an entrepreneur, leader, and advocate, Charlie has made a lasting impact not only at UT Dallas, but also within the broader tech and business communities. His passion for bringing people together and empowering the next generation of leaders is the driving force behind tonight's event and so much more. I am proud to introduce a man whose life embodies the values of innovation, leadership, and community, my father, Charlie Chen.
Good evening, yes. Well, on the way here, our guest speaker, Nan Wang, asked me, where you come out this Charlie's Tech Talk? And I share with him that back in 20 years ago, the company started with Toastmaster club we call DFW Technology Toastmaster, we call DFW Tech Talk as a club name to help the employee to learn the English as well as the public speaking, right? Toastmaster. And since then, every time I watch the TED, T-E-D, Tech Talk, I always thinking, one day I'm going to do something about Tech Talk. Yes. Now, tonight, dream come true. Thank you very much. Especially thank you for Dr. Chris, the director of CASE, the Asian study. When Dr. Chris talk about the Asian Center, some of friends here also involved to help him to come up with this Center for Asian Studies in UT Dallas. And I'm so glad that he was able to persuade the university authority to establish this case. But then the pandemic hit, and then, seems everything's stuck there. But then Dennis always called me. Near UTD, there's a La Mandarin French coffee shop as well as the lunch place. We always sit there and brainstorming about what we're going to do about this case. Certainly some of the summer camp program is ongoing, but what kind of new life we can bring to case? Yeah. So one time I said, how about Tech Talk, Charlie's Tech Talk? Since I suggested, I got to supported, right? So I am so glad that with several family meetings, we are able to have a family consent to establish a Chance Family Foundation and then donate an endowment for university in return to support the kids. And that will be ongoing. But in addition of this, tonight is an additional program that we sponsor. We want to drive every semester inviting distinguished guests on campus and to community too, to share how especially Asian background, either art or technology figures, national figures, to the campus to share their vision, their experience to our campus and the community. And tonight, this is first time we have Nan Wang here, okay? So I'm so excited because, you know, in my life career since 40-something years ago, came to the United States back in 1980. Everything is always in Chinese we call the first person to eat the crab, right? 第一个人吃螃蟹. I always the first one step into something uncharted territory. The recent one is become the first Asian American to chair the Richardson Chamber of Commerce. In their 60 years, now it's 70 years. Yeah, we have the Amanda also. Amanda, you are after me, right? Yeah, about 2 years after me as a chamber chairwoman, and you know, let me kind of spend 1 minute to share a joke. I was leading a Richardson delegation, all the U.S. chamber, right, delegation to visit Tokyo and China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, you name it. And then in Tokyo, we have a big reception because Richardson had many Japanese corporations. And then we visit them, and then we invite them, all the executive, to one of the big hotel in Tokyo, because we are United Chamber, so we open a big reception for them. And then the international director, Mike Skelton, say something, say, okay, now let's have our chamber's chairman to speak some welcome for the event. And then suddenly there's a Chinese guy come out. And I can see, you know, in Japan, I think only one woman wear the pink, which is my wife. The rest is black and white. And almost 99% is gentlemen. And their eyes is like eyeball eyes, that big, look at me. This is the chairman for the United States Chamber of Commerce. And I knew it was gonna happen like that. So the first thing I say is, you know why USA is so strong? Because we have the diversity. That's why we are so strong. And then suddenly they say, oh, okay, I can see the head keeps saying, okay. Okay, let's, anyway, I'm so much appreciation, my family member and also community leaders show up to witness this inauguration for the first time. This will be every semester. And I told Nan Wang, you better set a good example. Because we have a big vision. We're going to invite, do you know, when I was chair for the chamber, you know whom I going to invite to for the chamber annual banquet? It's Jack Ma Yun. Yeah, but I was so busy and occupied because as a chair, you got to conduct almost 100 meetings per year, small, big. So I was too occupied. I didn't have chance to went to Hangzhou, China to invite Jack Ma, you know. Yeah. But we're going to do it through Charlie's Tech Talk. We have some distinguished people we're going to invite. This is just the beginning, okay? And you are the witness for the first one, okay? Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good job, Daddy. Next up, we have a special surprise for you. Does anyone know who is the one and only Asian American in the Texas House, one of only 3 female chairs for the standing committees, and the highest ranking elected Asian American ever in Texas? Yes, that's right, our one and only Angie Chen Button. Born in Taipei, Representative Button's journey from growing up in a 300-square-foot hut to becoming a state representative exemplifies the transformative power of education. A proud graduate of UT Dallas, she has been a longtime resident of Richardson and Garland, living the American dream, Texas style. Currently, Angie serves as the state representative for House District 11. She chairs the International Relations and Economic Development Committee and is a member of the Ways and Means Committee. Interviewing Representative Button tonight will be Joe Zhu, an accomplished entrepreneur and investor. He has been recognized as one of the top 50 outstanding Asian Americans in business and named one of the top 40 Asian Pacific Americans under 40. His leadership also earned him a prestigious spot as one of the only 15 leaders nationwide to serve on the Millennial Debt Commission in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Joe Zhu and Angie Chen Button.
Perfect. Before I begin, can we get another round of applause to our beautiful and amazing MC over here? Can we just get another round of applause for her? Great, now I did my duty. Angie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come here and speak to us. Certainly you are in campaign season right now, so to be able to spare this time, we really, really appreciate it. So thank you again. To get started, certainly Carol went over your wonderful history and everything that you've been through. You started as a TI manager and then was tapped to basically run for Texas House. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and ultimately what pushed you into public service?
Excellent question. But before I do that, I do have something else to say first. Hello, I got so many friends in the crowd. I can't believe I'm back to the family. Wonderful. And I'm going to point out 3 little secrets about Charlie, okay? You haven't heard from that real wonderful introduction. First, Charlie is my landlord. My district office is in his building. Second, Charlie fixed excellent papaya juice. Because 2 years ago when my husband and I, after walking hours for the block walking, we were so tired and got to his house. Well, yeah, he votes for me, for sure. And then he said, hold on. Let Pauline fix the noodle soup for you. Then I fix the papaya juice. Wow, it was so good. It was so good. I tell you, now every day we fix papaya juice, but beef noodle, I'm sorry, I don't have the talent. Okay. Another secret of Charlie is because his name is Charlie Chen, My maiden name is Angie Chen. I don't know how many people ask, is Charlie your brother? I said, I wish, but definitely Pauline is my sister-in-law. And you know what? This young gentleman here with all the wonderful title Carol just mentioned, you don't know about this. Last year, he helped me big time to stop that, well, that bill we don't want to mention, okay? And he went to Austin, sit down with governors, chief of staff, governors, top advisor, governors, a consultant, and myself and another colleague of mine. We spent hours, went through the unintended consequence and everything. You know, he did a great job, and I was so, so touched. Well, I don't have a daughter, I only have a son. If I have a daughter, you should have a competition out there, Carol. Okay. So, wonderful. Okay, let me answer your question. I've been involved with serving the community for ages. I'm just really want to demonstrate as Charlie. Charlie, you know, you and I know each other for over 25 years. Yeah, and we always talk about that. Hey, it's important to get our own community excited, but we need to go out to reach out the community at large so they will know and recognize us even more. And so I was doing a lot of things, including serving on the Dallas area transit assistance board and a bunch of other mainstream boards and commissions. And one day I was in TI, and my personal cell phone rang, and Senator Florence Shapiro, some of you might have heard about her. She was the longtime Plano mayor, then become the senator. And she called me up. She said, well, the incumbent is going to retire. Are you ready to run for that office? I just laugh and laugh and laugh. I said, well, Senator, are you sure this region is ready for an Asian American woman with funny English? And she said, you bet. So that's where I am today. So I am so, so appreciative. Of course, all those people help me. I still remember, like my dear friend, Chuck right there. He was one of the early sponsors of me. Of course, Charlie, so I can go on and on. And David, you know, you're just wonderful. And that's why I am today.
That's wonderful. And thank you so much for the kind words. That was an amazing experience coming in to Texas and being able to make such an impact through you and what you've done for the Asian American community. I think doesn't really get talked about enough. And certainly so much of that was behind the scenes, and we couldn't be public about it. But actually, one thing that really stood out to me when we were at the governor's office was you see all the governor cups and the trophies. And essentially what a governor's cup trophy is it's a award every year that they give to the state with the most economic development. And Texas actually has won that cup 12 consecutive years in a row.
Right.
Which is incredible. In fact, we have more business development opportunities and projects, 2 times more than the second place state. And that is incredible. Now, the other thing that I actually found out the last 2 days was Texas is also leading the country in the most Asian migrants coming to the state. That is incredible as well. So, you know, certainly there's bad bills out there. There are things that we will continue to fight as Asian Americans, and I look forward to continuing that fight with you. But I guess my question to that aspect is Texas has a winning formula. Focus on economics, focus on business development, and people will come. So, with that said, can you explain a little bit further what Texas is doing for Asian Americans and most importantly in the technology sector?
That's another excellent question. Which remind me, I need to acknowledge that, Charlie, thank you for being an official delegate of the Governor's Asia trip, along with lovely Pauline. We sure had a great time over there. Yeah. Well, okay. So what's going on is with a growing population in the Asian community, and people used to connect Asian community with kind of a shy, technology focus, but now really in the leadership position. But that has been changed in the last 10 years, especially in the last 5 years, with all those high-tech Asian companies popping up one after another, and I see another one popping up significantly. And people started to pay attention to the Asian American community. So like I always tell people, well, you know what? I might look a little bit nerdy, but being nerdy is good. That just means I'm good at math, I'm good at science, and I'm good creating jobs for this great country. So let's talk about this trip. You know, Charlie, you remember that how people were so in Taiwan specifically, so impressed when I pointed out there are 7 official members in the governor's delegation are really the people with Taiwanese roots. You remember that? And everybody say, wow. And afterwards, people just, surrounded each of you, want to figure out, yes, isn't that wonderful that you all are so successful in Texas? So we definitely want to join you, come to invest and also promote the two-way trade, okay? And one of the reasons why Asian population and the Asian community is doing so well, especially in the high-tech business area, is because we used to have a lot of engineers, always. The days I work for Texas Instruments, I know that every time I go to the fab or the meetings, half of them are Asians. Actually, usually I was the only girl, okay? Everybody, but definitely not the only Asian, half of them. But most of them were just engineers or senior engineers or technical members. But today is different. We see a lot of high-level executives, and that's changing because people started to realize we have potentials for leadership, and I am so proud of that. So events like today's, the Tech Talk, your Tech Talk is going to throw a big stone, if I don't want to say through a big bomb, through a big stone in a peaceful pool and created a lot of ripple effect. People say, wow, and never too shy to have a great imagination. I think inviting Alibaba's founder, go ahead. Why not? We are doing real well. You can even invite Jason coming to here. Yeah, isn't that true? Well, by the way, Darcy, I wish you bought some of the NVIDIA's, stocks. Then I don't have to work so hard. Earn my $600 a month salary, okay?
Thank you, Angie. Actually, it's funny. Nan and I were talking about, because I was a graduate of the University of Illinois, and there are so many great founders that came out of the University of Illinois. And they would get their studies there and then move to Silicon Valley. And in a lot of parts, it was because the tech talent was there, the funding was there, and the ecosystem was there. What can Texas do? And ultimately, what can the Texas government do to support that ecosystem's development here in this state so that we can keep talent here as well as attract talent to build innovation here in this state?
Did you and I rehearse this already? No.
I promise you I did not send questions in advance.
We didn't even have time to talk about what we're going to talk about. My day is just going really crazy now. But I tell you what, This is very interesting. You know, the governor always brag about how many people leaving California every day and move to Texas. And that is nothing but the truth. Now, Texas, not only the number one, well, we're being the number one oil and gas industry company leaders, the latest is we also are the number one space industry leader in the country. Well, with Elon Musk, he's so crazy about us. So we see all those things coming in. And yes, just last session, we created this Chips in Texas program, Texas Consortium program. Amanda, remember Governor came here, had the press conference, because the Chips in Texas actually is a joint project, and also announced this semiconductor assortion program need to work with the higher education. And I was right there because I am not only am a proud UTD graduate, I am very proud to represent majority of UTD. Oh, by the way, don't blame it on me when you coming in and you see all those constructions going on. That's because my bill gave the mechanism for UTD to raise money to build a new student center plus the international center. Amanda, yeah. So we'll continue to generate a lot of structures, plus we have the incentive programs that's already out there. And then actually this morning I was at the NBC Channel 5 interview, the Lone Star program interview, and they were asking what's my plan. And I did share, I said, I gotta get my campaign down first, but when I'm ready to go back to Austin, you bet you're gonna see a lot of movement, a lot of bills proposed to improve our infrastructure and getting the way to get more high-tech companies moving into Texas, and I cannot help but brag about what Charlie did. I'm not asking to cut my rent for my district office, but I do have to brag about what you have done. Is that you helping the Asian Trade Center moving from Miami to Dallas. I remember that I was right there for the opening event. That's just another example. People are paying attention to this region. I can go on and talk about the recent development in Sherman, but I don't think that you have that much time. And I know you want to ask me about the gambling industry, is that right? Because I noticed Nan is getting really antsy to know what's going on about the legislature gonna do, okay?
Well, so certainly to that point, I guess new industries are always going to be presented as opportunities here in the state of Texas. But Texas, as everybody knows, tends to be more on the conservative side. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in regards to how the legislator currently sees this legislation. Certainly there's a lot of influence from big parties, Las Vegas Sands, MGM, and the likes. But how is Texas going to manage that to make sure that there's opportunities for all, for that matter, as well?
Excellent. Well, I'm going to do a survey, but if you are too shy to raise your hand, that's quite okay. How many of you would love to once in a while go to Las Vegas casinos or drive over the border to Louisiana or Oklahoma to enjoy? Oh, thank you for your courage. I know a lot of people like to do that. To me, having fun is great. Plus that it will attract conventions, especially the technology convention, remember that the consumer product show has been always held at Las Vegas like that. So to me, having a high-class resort destination gaming industry is a part of the economic development. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But as Joe pointed out, Texas, we've been on the very, very conservative side. So our Constitution prohibit any gambling activities, the horse racing over there and also the Texas lottery. It went through a lot of trouble, but those are just very, very small scale type. And it's tightly regulated and monitored, okay? But things has been changing in the last 2 sessions, especially last session. So I'm gonna read you some bill numbers. My husband always say, please don't read those bill numbers. People are getting bored about, but I'm serious. So I'm giving you the bill numbers. You can look it up so you know we are very serious about the potential change of the direction, okay? And I can tell Steve took out his pen, taking notes. Thank you. Okay, last session, there was a major, major movement. And the 2 sets of bills we have been working on and presented. Let me first talk about the online sports betting. Nan, you and I talked on the phone for a while. You know, this is really popular. A lot of young people are doing this. The only thing is, since Texas, we don't do that, so the sales revenue or whatever related revenue goes to other people. And my colleague, Representative Jeff Leach, which his district is actually very close to here. Maybe some of you live in his district. No, the Collin County area. And he filed HJR 102 and also HB 1942. See, what happened is, if you want to change what's on the Constitution, it takes 2/3 of the votes, which means 2/3 of 150 votes. It takes at least 100 votes to make the Constitution amendment before you can present the bill. So my wonderful colleague, Jeff Leach, he did those 2 bills, and he designated the net taxes, tax revenue generated from the online sports betting will be dedicated to property tax relief, at least 95%. That's a wonderful idea. And his 2 bills passed out of the House, but didn't even get a hearing in the committee at the other big part of the Capitol, the Senate. So I bet he's going to continue to work hard on that. But at least it passed out of the House. Yeah. So that's amazing. That's a first time in history. Okay, another one, as I mentioned earlier, that destination resorts with the casinos in specific metropolitan, we're not talking about somewhere, in the countryside. We're talking about why not to have a first-class casino resort in Dallas-Fort Worth area, Houston, and San Antonio, those 3 major cities. They had some good movements. And my dear colleague from Tarrant County, because he wants to have that in his district, Charlie Garrett, who is a very, very senior chairman, a very strong chairman, he introduced the HJR 155, which is a Constitution amendment, and also an enabling HB 2843. And he worked so hard. And this HB 2843 is actually, let me clarify that, was authored by representative couple from the central central Texas, kind of close to the San Antonio area. What he tried to do is to use this bill to set up a gaming commission and outline the procedures. You know, for major efforts, the way handling as a set up the detailed regulation, because the law can only say so much, but the actual regulation has to be established in the commission, just like an education commission and a bunch of other commissions. So Representative Chairman Capon, well, I tell you what, this is all the chairmen pushing for this bill, okay? Then set up this Texas Gaming Commission. Guess what? It didn't really move very much, and especially for the Constitution Amendment, which require 2/3 of the vote. So I have to say that it didn't go very much. But there's a lot of talks going on, and I just want to point out, you all know that recently the major purchase of the property in the old, the Dallas Cowboys old stadium area in Irving, like that, and also a lot of talks about people coming constantly hold round tables to brief people about those ideas. So I cannot promise the next session will happen, but let me assure you, there are significant interest. The bottom line is a lot of Texans are spending their money, well, sometimes making money, and enjoy, you know, the scamming, either online or resort casinos, whatever. But the difference is that our neighboring, you know, states gets the revenue. So why not having Texas getting the revenue? If we do it the right way, make it into a first class, a resort destination type. And another thing is, you all know that Mark Cuban sold his majority ownership of, you know, Dallas Maverick, and but he said that he wants Maverick will be built in the center of the new resort. So you can see a lot of hints around. Something major is going to happen. I cannot guarantee next year, or the year after, or whatever. But I think when things start to move, usually it will be moving so fast before you realize it. And you saw, golly, I wish I noticed that several years ago. So, like my husband Darcy over there, oh, I thought about buying the NVIDIA stocks, you know, this kind of stories. Okay, but anyway, if you don't have any more questions for me, I'm going to sneak out. I'm going to watch your videotape later on, because I do have to fly to Austin, have to take an early flight to Austin for meetings. And once again, thank you for having me. It's such a great pleasure to share my thoughts with you. Yes, this my dear friend Dennis and Abby, thank you so much for helping out the Center for Asian Studies. This is so important. This is not only having people paying attention to our culture, our influence, our wealth, our potential, and, Carol, our leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Angie.
Okay, so now you guys know it's kind of a family affair, because Charlie's my dad and Joe is my husband and Angie is basically my aunt. And then actually our next speaker is kind of like a brother to me. I've known him for a long, long time. So I'm very, very excited to introduce him. He actually just flew all the way from Las Vegas, and we were actually neighbors when I lived there for a year. And so when my dad was building this tech talk and we were discussing who is an influential Asian American in tech that we want to open our inaugural session with, Joe and I immediately thought of Nan. Besides all of the success that he's had, he's actually one of the most humble, down-to-earth, just amazing humans you'll ever meet. So we're just so lucky to have him here. Just as a formal introduction, he is the co-founder and CEO of Sleeper, one of the fastest-growing sports platforms in the US. If you haven't seen their billboards yet, you're going to see them all over Dallas pretty soon. Sleeper's mission is to help strengthen friendships through sports. I actually didn't know this, but he was telling me that he created this with his co-founder because they used to keep in touch as friends through their fantasy leagues. And when they got together, they actually didn't even have an idea. They were just chatting about, hey, we've been childhood best friends since we were 5, and we should do something cool and fun together. And they thought about all these different ideas that they could do, and suddenly Sleeper was born, and now it's on its way to being the next unicorn, which is crazy and exciting that two best friends just kind of built this for fun. So the company builds modern and social experiences for sports fans, enabling them to connect over fantasy leagues, daily fantasy games, discussion communities, content, and more. Sleeper has over 5 million users on the platform, and major investors include Andreessen Horowitz, General Catalyst, as well as celebrities like Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Hart, and others. Prior to founding Sleeper, Nan's experience spans private equity, new business development, and corporate strategy across the US and Asia, including a second-year appointment to China's Sovereign Wealth Fund, where he worked on asset allocation and infrastructure projects. Nan also graduated from Dartmouth, like Dr. Dennis Kratz, where he earned dual degrees in economics and environmental studies, and was a member of the Ivy League Champions rugby team. In addition to his work with Sleeper, Nan is an angel investor and advisor to other startups. And he also has an Emmy from being the co-executive producer of the documentary 38 at the Garden. And he's also single. Sorry, just a little promo out there. I'm going to live broadcast this, by the way, on my Instagram. Interviewing Nan Wang will be Steve Volkoviak, an attorney with the international law firm Greenberg & Torek, where he serves as co-chairman of the Video Games and Esports Group. As a consultant and esports legal advisor, Steve works with clients to navigate the complex and evolving esports legal landscape, where he represents some of the top talent and teams in the industry. He also serves as an associate professor at the University of Miami, where he teaches courses on the legal aspects of video games, esports, and streaming. So without further ado, let's welcome Steve and our esteemed speaker, Nan Wang.
Well, Nan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Mr. Chen and Mrs. Chen, for opening up this opportunity to speak with all the esteemed guests here today, and thank you for everybody for taking time out of your Wednesday to come celebrate the Asian Centers and also hear me speak. Over the last day and a half, I really got a taste of what true Southern hospitality has been like. Dean Kratz and Abby Kratz, when I showed up, waited for me for 30 minutes at the hotel at 10 p.m. To receive and make sure that I got in my room okay. And then over the last day, the Chen family has been so gracious to show me around Dallas and try to convince me to move out here. And so it's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully we have a good discussion. I want to make sure that we answer all the questions, so there's Q&A at the very end as well.
Well, we learned a little bit about what Sleeper is from the introduction, but while everybody's downloading it from the App Store and the Google Store as well, tell us the foundations of what Sleeper is and what sort of interaction the user might have as part of that global experience.
Yeah, Carol covered a lot of this in the intro, but ultimately the mission for Sleeper is to build friendships through sports. And how we came up with that thesis was that my co-founder and I, we've been friends since we were 5 years old. Our parents were first-generation immigrants here to the U.S. And dropped into Washington State University as grad students. And Wei Shi and I moved out here, and we're basically next-door neighbors at the student union. Before we ever even learned how to speak the language, the way we made friends was kickball at the student union with other kids. And you know, him and I had developed a passion ever since we were little around sports. And when I moved away, we used that to stay in touch. So initially, and I'm dating myself here a little bit, but we had a AOL chat room where we'd send each other news and articles. And then we had a fantasy league where we would play every single year, and it was more of an excuse to just check in on see how each other were doing. We would send each other trading cards over snail mail. And when we came together, we realized that if we wanted to do something, we should do something we were both passionate about, because building companies are really, really hard. And when we dove a little bit deeper, we realized that that experience that we shared as kids was also something that pretty much every other fan also shared with us. We were looking to our left, to our right, and we realized that people were using sports as water cooler conversation to open up conversation with strangers at the bar. They were using these fantasy leagues as a way to stay in touch with long lost or distant family members, or to create social environments at work. And yet nobody had created a social experience for sports at the time. You would go onto a homepage of a website, you would read an article, and the first thing you would want to do is pull it somewhere and discuss it and argue about it with somebody else. And so a lot of this interaction was leaked off onto people's emails and into their text threads and into their group chat messages. And we decided to come together and really verticalize that experience and create a super app around the social experience around sports. So if you think about what Sleeper is at its core, it is your messenger app, and then we integrate content, we integrate games directly into that environment.
So the relationships that are formed really are central and are a key aspect of this platform. And so I want to give you a quote that's actually on your own Twitter profile. I want to get this right. You say, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people together to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. So when you were building Sleeper and really founding that core of community and interaction as part of the platform, how did you teach people to long for that immensity of the sea? How did you motivate them to come together with a shared vision?
Yeah, great question. I think that quote has been core to almost everything we've done in the last 10 years. Because if you're building a company, it should start from a mission. You want to make the world a better place, or you want something to aim for and a North Star so that you can align your team to work towards a common purpose. Without a mission, a lot of times companies can get sidetracked. There might be new ideas that pop up that become sexier because venture funding is gravitating towards that area, or there might be tough days where unless you have something bigger to fight for, you just might want to give up. And so for us, the mission around solving social for sports was a calling card where in the early days, people really understood. When we described that to people we were hiring, they're like, yeah, I do that with my friends, and I want to work on projects that actually do that because I'm building it for myself. And what that allowed us to do was it allowed us to attract really, really good talent that didn't just come for the paycheck. And we couldn't afford to compete with Google and Facebook and all the big tech giants in Silicon Valley. We didn't have a climbing gym at the office. We didn't have a lunch program. We didn't have stock options at the time. And so people did come to us because they believed in the future that we were trying to build. And then as we scaled, we found that common mission, or that common vision allowed us to really have teams that were autonomous and self-directed, because they knew what we were all marching towards. I didn't have to go and micromanage every single decision that was being made. And it also created an environment and opportunity for people to be innovative. If you told somebody to build a ship, you can give them a blueprint and a design to build the exact ship you want, and then we would have every single ship around the world look exactly the same. But if you tell somebody to go and sail the oceans, you'll have steamships, you'll have sailboats, you'll have even people trying to do long distance transports and kayaks. And so you get creativity out of that and freedom for people to explore. And innovation happens in those pockets. It's when you give people the ability to explore around a shared mission that you get some of the best ideas. Sleeper would not be the same way it is today if I kind of dictated exactly what we wanted to build.
That sounds like it takes a lot of trust in your team, and you're delegating that authority, you're delegating that permission almost to think differently and really explore those concepts. How are you able to give up a little bit of that authority to someone else on your team when this is obviously something you're very passionate about? It's your baby, it's your creation. You know, how are you able to step back a little bit and give up a little bit to get so much more?
Yeah, I don't think I gave up anything at all. I think very early on, it was the recognition that we were all embarking on a new journey where none of us knew the answer to what we were trying to solve. And it was the recognition that I had a narrow skill set. You know, despite Carol talking about, you know, all the stuff that I did over the last 10 years before starting Sleeper, it was all focused on finance. And so I knew how to make a PowerPoint and a financial model, but I didn't know how to do business development. I didn't know how to fundraise. I didn't know how to do engineering or UI, UX. In fact, my very first venture meeting with my co-founder, I'd never done fundraising before. And so I just assumed that because in banking everybody showed up in suits, that it was the right thing to do, and I would have a PowerPoint presentation, talk about my college and my financial background on all the track record of success, and boom, I'd walk out with a check. I showed up in a suit, Wei Shi showed up in a pair of flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt, my co-founding engineer, and the two VCs looked at us, was like, that's the engineer, I'm gonna talk to the engineer. And so it was very clear from the very first meeting we ever had that it was gonna be a team effort, and that there were certain skills, especially early on in the business, building the product, that were going to be things that I just was way out of my depth on. And so I had to trust people to do that because it's the only way we would succeed.
Well, and I think you highlight something important there, where your differences were your strengths, right? From the history that I know of you and in our conversations, you've physically been a lot of different places in this country and beyond. So you've been able to draw on a number of different experiences from different parts of the world, West Coast, East Coast, you know, Midwest. How did those experiences shape the founding mentality that you have, and how were you able to create new communities in all these different places?
Yeah, I think the world's a big place, and I think my travels have obviously opened up a lot of new friendships and networks that have been very helpful along the way. You know, introductions from my team here. So my old fund was actually based on St. Paul Street here in Dallas, and they introduced me to a lot of angel investors in the very early days. And then I had friends that I met, you know, when I was going to high school in New York that eventually went into Wall Street. And they helped me think through capital structures as we were thinking about how to, you know, finance the business. You know, being in Silicon Valley as an entrepreneur, I met a bunch of other Asian entrepreneurs that helped me think through product strategy. And so I think the networks that I had and that I developed in the different regions around the world have been really influential in shaping, you know, how I approach the business, but more importantly, the access to, you know, new ideas and new people too.
So you've got a very successful career in finance and private equity, and then you make the decision to take this leap of faith, right? To yearn for this immensity of the sea. Walk us through that decision. What gave you the strength? What gave you the courage to really venture out and try this completely new thing? Or maybe it's not completely new. I mean, tell me how it's different. Tell me how it's changed, and tell me how you came to that decision.
Yeah. I think it all goes back to my parents. And so if you understand my parents' background, they were born on a small farm in rural China, about 6 hours outside of Chengdu. In 1979, Nixon went over to reestablish bilateral relationships over a game of ping pong. And then they opened up an exchange program for those students to have access to education here in the US. My dad was part of one of those first waves, so he came out here and he went to school at Washington State University and was in the sciences. He was a botanist, a biochemist, and eventually a dermatologist. But seeing him make that move, that was already something that was super risk-taking that I could look at and you know, endeavor to try to kind of be inspired from. But as I was growing up, I also realized that there was a part of them that he couldn't really, pursue because he was always just trying to put food on the table for us. And so he went completely linearly down the STEM side. And when I was in middle school, he had an opportunity to do a career change. They were trying to poach him out of University of Michigan, where he was a PhD at the time. And one of the companies offered him the ability to go to business school at University of Michigan. And he had to turn it down because the next 4 years, he had to save and provide so that he can go to college. And so I saw that risk-taking part of him really early on, and I saw that later on in life. That flame kind of was dissipated because he had to provide. That's a lot of the first-generation immigrant stories out here. And I've been a beneficiary of that. So I went to a good school, and then I followed the path that I was supposed to, went through corporate recruiting, got onto Wall Street, did all the things that I was supposed to do, and then I looked back and was like, what else should I be doing? Can I chase something bigger? Can I create a dream, or can I chase my dreams and my passions in ways that my father was never able to do? And so he's been my inspiration for that. I got to that point when I was 30 years old, and I was like, this foundation's already been built for me. Why am I still walking the same path? And that's when I called Wei Shi, my co-founder, and I was like, hey, are you feeling the same thing I'm feeling? Do you want to actually try to go and build something together and for ourselves and for legacy? And that's what birthed Sleeper. However, my mom still looks at all the stuff I've done, and she's like, when are you getting married and when are you getting your doctorate? So
Different kind of pressure, I guess.
yeah.
So when you took this leap of faith, and obviously it's been tremendously successful. It's a wonderful app, millions of users growing every day. What sort of advice do you have to someone who is feeling that community pressure, feeling that parental pressure to toe the line, and maybe just feels the need to continue along the journey they're on? What can you offer them that encourages them to make that leap of faith, to go yearn for that immensity once again?
Yeah, I guess if I look back at when I started 10 years ago and I can give myself that extra nudge to go do it, I would tell them that there's really no time like the present, and it gets harder and harder to do it the more comfortable you get in life. And I think once we have mortgages and families and kids, it becomes harder to take a lot of these risks. So for a lot of undergrads that are coming out of the UT Dallas system, if you have a big dream, like, don't be worried to go and just go for it. I was scared, like, when I was in my 20s, I thought that I needed to prove myself and have some stability career-wise before I could really have the gravitas in a meeting to be able to go fundraise or to convince people to back my company. But really, company building is about venturing into the unknown, and there's really not any job that will prepare you for a founder's journey, because you're just figuring shit out as you go. And that's really it. And that's common for every job, so like, why start later? Just start now.
What specific advice might you offer someone who is taking that first step? They've made that decision. They're going to venture out, whether it's something you've learned along the way, or whether just basic advice of paint by numbers steps you need to take.
I'll answer that with some of the mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, especially early on. Number one is just don't be afraid to tap into your network. And even though I had this Wall Street experience, I was afraid to burn bridges. If the company didn't work out, I always wanted, like, the ability to go back and work for the company that I work for and collect a paycheck again. So I was afraid to ask my boss for intros into other VCs, even though he could pick up the phone and connect me with 10 people within 30 minutes. And that held our company back. So my personal fear hindered company progress. And the analogy I would like to use, if we go back to the exploring the ocean front, I felt like I was in a life raft, wanting to see the ocean, but I was never willing to lose sight of the beach. And so that was lesson number one. The second is that there are a billion ideas out there. Success or failure is really dependent on the people you bring on board. to execute on the vision. And this goes hand in hand, but because I was not able to fundraise, we missed out on some really, really amazing talent. And I was always just penny pinching early on. I was like, this guy wants $250,000. I only have $250,000 in my entire bank account. We can't bring him on. That person eventually became the founder of Discord, which is a $30 billion business. So don't miss out on really, if you spot talent and you know it, hire them. So that was lesson number 2. Third, and this is a little bit of my like Asian culture that I had to reprogram out of myself, but I was always taught to be very deferential and very like meek, I guess, if you will. It's like honor your elders and like be very respectful in conversations. Those are all great qualities to have as a human being. Business and venture and fundraising is about dollars and cents, and people want you to show strength in those conversations. And I didn't learn this until way later. I used to go into VC meetings, and the venture capitalists would be like, oh, have you thought about this new product idea? Or have you done this? And it would be the dumbest idea on planet Earth, and I would still say, yes, thank you for that feedback. I love it. Maybe I'll go back and stew on it and get you a proposal next day. Or I would ask them to introduce me to folks that were in their network, because we absolutely, so I would kind of kiss their ass, and I'd be like, your fund is so good in this department, and I need to work with you guys because you unlock X, Y, and Z for us. That is actually the opposite of what they want to hear. Most VCs just want to invest and know that you can do the job, and then they don't have to really think about it anymore. And so I didn't realize it till much later, and I'm not an asshole in meetings, but now I'm a lot more strong in terms of my conviction, especially because the business is doing a lot better. And I will call out bad ideas in conversations if they are truly bad ideas. And when a lot of people ask if they can give product ideas, I'll listen to it, but if it's a bad idea, I'll say, well, most of the time we're just not looking for product, backseat product drivers, but I appreciate the input. And so that's helped us along the way. And then the final piece, really around lessons learned, is really around team. We've gotten bigger. We're 100 people now at the company. I think it's like 100, 102. And we're distributed all around the country because of COVID. We went remote. It's really important to invest into your people. At some point, you get to product market fit and consumers want it, but you have to keep everyone motivated, and they have to have not only a coalescence around the mission of the company, but they also have to truly enjoy working together. Because otherwise, true talent is fluid. They can go anywhere. And so we spend a lot of time now creating spaces for colleagues to build genuine friendships. We do trips to Vegas, we do offsites, and then we encourage folks to have days where they're just not constantly problem solving on Zoom, but genuinely having a chance to hang out and build friendships with each other.
Yeah, I want to stay on teams for a minute and talent. How do you go about recognizing good talent? Again, and especially in an area that might be new, cutting edge, where there might not be a track record where you can draw from. It's a career change for this individual. Yeah. What are you looking for as far as an individual? Any advice you can give to the young folks that might be watching this right now?
It depends on the department. There's obviously all of the quantitative stuff you can look at. Track record of success at previous jobs, reference checks with previous colleagues, any projects they've worked on that you can actually visibly touch and feel. And then there's a lot of other kind of more intangible things. And the intangible things are, I think, where the magic is made. And for us, we look for people who can do something that nobody else on the team can do, or are experts in a field that nobody else on the team is, and they've demonstrated repeated success in those fields. And like an example I'll give you is, if you look at the logo on Sleeper, it's changed over the years, but the core of it was actually modeled off the female robot on WALL-E. And the reason why we did that as a sports app is because the first 5 designers we hired at the company were all female non-sports fans. And the reason why we did that was because we had 4 co-founders who were diehard sports fans that were male. And if we built a product just for ourselves, we'd be missing out on such a lovely and amazing demographic of potential fans on our platform. And so what did they do? They took inspiration from things they loved. They created a color palette on our app that was way more way more accessible. Sorry, and then in places they didn't understand, they built in contextual help to solve their own problems. So there's this a part of our app which shows player statistics, and it will be like 3.2 YPC, which is yards per carry. Most people aren't going to know that, and so what they did was they color-coded red, yellow, green, and they put a little paperclip button where if you didn't understand that, you can click it and it would explain it to you again. They created community features where new users could onboard. And that's an example of somebody complementing a skill set or understanding a demographic or an audience or geography that we otherwise wouldn't have had. And it's had tangible business impact. 30% of our audience is female now. Most sports apps are sub 10%. We still have a lot more work to do there. And so that's kind of one example of that.
It sounds like, once again, you're highlighting some differences that are actually strengths, right? You're highlighting the fact that you're bringing in non-sports fans to a sports app, a community sports app, but a sports app nonetheless. How have you seen that your attitude and your approach to whether it's talent or development, highlighting that other has enhanced your overall experience and your growth as an entity?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. So by focusing on the social element of the product and not just the sports part of the audience or of the product, it's opened up target addressable market, as I kind of alluded to, because what typically happens in any group of friends is you've got one or two people who are just like, they're going to watch every single football game, basketball game, research every single statistic, read every single article. And then you're going to have 10 people who just don't really care, but they're there because they want to be a part of the conversation or they don't want to feel left out. And so by putting our product in a position where it's centered around a messenger, it's more about the conversation than the game itself. And it's more about hanging out with your friends than the actual updating of your roster. It's more about the argument behind the article than just knowing about what happened. And that creates a lot of different things. It creates viral growth because now people are incentivized to invite their friends onto the platform. Whereas, when's the last time you invited somebody to the homepage of ESPN? Doesn't happen, because what are you going to do? There's nothing you could do on there. But it also allows us to capture a lot of the long tail engagement, because you might have come into the product about a single news article, but then that group, as it grows, eventually becomes about, hey, what did you have for lunch today? Do you want to go hiking? And it starts replacing people's true group chats and their emails and their text threads. And so we're creating a horizontal platform built around messaging that can actually disrupt a lot of different verticals, even beyond sports. And so that's a true potential of the social aspect versus the sports aspect.
What are the sports that you have on the platform right now, and any areas that you are looking to get into, if you can disclose that at this point?
Yeah, we started with NFL, American football, most popular sport in the U.S. Just saw an opportunity to disrupt that space with a known audience. And then as a game studio, we also realized that there were all these other sports globally, but nobody had truly built a social game that had the ability to retain. So NFL fantasy has about 30 million players. The next biggest, basketball, I think, is sub 5 million, despite over 1 billion sports fans around the world that watch basketball. And soccer is even bigger than that. But none of them really retain. And the reason is the game mechanics have been broken. And so we've been hard at work trying to fix a lot of the intrinsic issues that have caused retention curves to drop steeply in each of those categories. We launched basketball right before COVID. We launched an esports product during COVID when all live sports got canceled. And then we recently just launched soccer about 6 weeks ago. So really excited about it because the early signs of each of those products is really sprouting, and we're seeing retention start to match what we have on the football audience, which means that if we're able to continue to scale it and the users continue to come, this really could be a company that reaches billions of people around the world.
Let's dig in on the tech side. Your approach to problem solving on the actual technical elements. Are you trying to build from the ground up, build something new? Or generally is your approach more of the, I'm going to tweak some element. I'm going to take the existing scaffolding and try to add something that maybe someone doesn't have, or do it a little bit differently. How do you approach those problems?
I mean, both models work depending on what industry you're in. Like slight improvements over video conference have resulted in Zoom, right? It happens. But we're very much the type of company that's at the cutting edge of innovation around gaming and around sports by choice. And for us, it's recognizing that there's like this massive blue ocean of untapped opportunity where all the prior products had failed. And so why would you copy a failed product? It just would end up with probably similar results. And so we spend a lot of time thinking in first principles. Just the example around basketball that I can maybe dive in on is every single company that was before us building a fantasy basketball game saw the success of football and just copy-pasted the exact rules, not recognizing that a NBA season is 6 months long with games every single day. If you do something 6 months long for every single day, you're going to get bored of it. It's going to feel like work after a little while. And so that's what we're hearing from people. It was just like, we love basketball, but like 3 weeks into the season, 80% of our league quit just because they couldn't keep up with the pace. People have lives to tend to. And the other thing that we realized is that, wait, like as math nerds, we looked at the structure of the game. A basketball game is 48 minutes with 24-second shot clocks, which means you have a very narrowly designed like script of how the game will play out, where most games end up with 100 to 110 points per team per game, and there's very little variance in outcomes. And when you combine a long duration product with low variance, you get high predictability. Who wants to play a high predictability game? Just doesn't happen. If I already know who's going to win, there's no point to play. And so we went back and we're like, let's fix all this. Let's create new dynamics where people can condense the number of interactions, maybe condense it to a weekly basis, introduce variance with a game mechanic, and now all of a sudden it's taking off. So long-winded way of saying you should probably think to zig when people zag if you see a blue ocean opportunity.
Founding a company with your best friend, what are the challenges unique to that situation, and what were the net benefits, at least with respect to Sleeper?
He's one of the best people in the world. We have a friendship that not only is core to us, but our parents were like best friends too in grad school. And so when we started the company, we promised each other that no matter how hard it would get, that the friendship would always come first. And that's come up many times. Like we've had disagreements on fundraising strategy. We've had disagreements on product strategy. I've had yelling matches with him over the years. But it all comes back to making sure you set those parameters and expectations early on to know that in those heated moments, in moments of disagreement, that it's well-intentioned. And so I think that was very, very important for us to have that as a foundation. Now, 10 years in, I think it's a little bit interesting because we're starting to mind meld, which might not be a good thing also. Like we've had all of our arguments over the years, and I find myself now more often agreeing with him than disagreeing with him on a lot of stuff. And that's dangerous for a company because then you end up having groupthink. And with founders that don't distribute accountability or responsibility, and there's many of those types of companies in the world, then what you end up having is like, you don't cover the broad scope of potential what ifs. You don't see your blind sides, you don't see your opportunities. And so for us, it's really important that we recognize that, and we've welcomed more people in our senior team to be a part of the strategy discussions and the conversations. And that's been truly, truly transformative for us, because on the soccer game, you know, Weishi and I had one idea of what we wanted to do, but we have a couple folks on our Portugal team that had 20 years of experience from FIFA and from Electronic Arts come into the company. And they're like, well, we've tried a bunch of different things here, and here. And while you guys agree with that, maybe take a look at it this way. And that saved us probably 2 years of mistakes and iteration. And so it's helpful to work with a friend if you set the right boundaries. And it's also helpful if you work with a friend if you recognize that that could also be a hindrance, especially later on.
And you just touched on this a little bit. I want you to expand on it a little bit more if you can. How do you avoid that staleness, like you said, that the mind meld where you've gotten too comfortable, right? You want to keep things fresh. You want to welcome new ideas. How do you do that at a company that can be a victim of its own success after you've reached a certain point?
I'll tell you when we're successful. We're not there yet. We're still working on it. But tech is amazing because the pace of innovation can be counted in hours and days. And so if you are resting on your laurels, somebody's going to eat your lunch. And yeah, we've built this platform now. It's actually close to like 8.5 million users on it. But Facebook was able to acquire 8.5 million users in like 3 weeks. And so there's always somebody that's coming up behind you that has access to new technology and new hardware or new kind of inflection points in business models. And if you're not constantly innovating, that's a surefire way to be left behind eventually.
How do you continue to innovate but still maintain that core that's at the center of your vision, your platform itself?
Yeah, the good news for us is that there's just so many sports and so many things to build. And so once we've done football, we've moved on to a new category in basketball. Once we've done basketball, we've done soccer. And so it's no different than like a pharmaceutical company with an R&D pipeline. You can always do more. And for us, having that mission helps us understand that a little bit better, because the mission for the business wasn't to go and, acquire 10 million users, raise a bunch of venture capital, and then sell it and be happy and retire. The mission of the company was to connect the world and have friendships be propagated through our platform and have relationships be strengthened through our platform. And we're nowhere near that journey. And so I go into work hungry every single day because we're only part way there.
How are you going to define success?
I think if somebody in Georgia, the state, and Georgia, the country, have become lifelong friends on our platform because of a shared love of soccer, and they met through a World Cup tournament, I think we would have done our job.
I like that. I really like that answer. All right.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm going to do my best James Lipton / Hot Ones impression here.
Okay.
And hit you with a little bit of a lightning round.
All right.
All right. Question one of the lightning round. What makes you happiest?
Good friends, family, and good food. Yeah.
Favorite dish to eat? Favorite dish to cook?
Sashimi. Favorite dish to cook is pasta.
Of all the places you've ever lived, which is your favorite?
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
Most of those people aren't here right now, so you can badmouth whoever you want.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a good one. I loved Hong Kong. I was there. That's actually where Carol and I met when we were out in Asia. This is not a really lightning answer, but it influences like how I think about the Asian diaspora. So when I was younger, I used to be almost ashamed that I was Asian, because we were the only one of like 2 or 3 Asian families in small town America. And I remember my mom would make me all these like really nice lunches, and I would go into the cafeteria and I would not eat them. And I would or I'd trade them for like Ritz crackers and stuff. And so I was always like the other up until college. Dartmouth started to open up a little bit of like that experience where there were other Asians around me. But it wasn't until I got to Hong Kong where I was just like, me. And a lot of that was really transformative because it kind of shattered a lot of my expectations around like bamboo ceiling, the concept of bamboo ceiling. I was seeing successful Asians in finance and film and media and all that kind of stuff in my 20s, and it was very inspiring. And now that I'm back here in the US, that experience has helped me understand that a lot of the early struggles, that I faced as a kid, going back to my point earlier, a lot of those early challenges of not having access the burdens were already bore by my parents, and so it gave me the opportunity to really chase for more, which is also why it's really important that centers like this exist, because it reinforces not just like our cultural values and the amazing aspects of our heritage, but it also creates a platform for now Asian Americans of the next generation to build their own stories and realize that they can have centers dedicated to themselves too. Yeah, so like I'm just super proud of that and very honored to be a part of this.
So how did that experience of being the other, then being in an experience where you didn't necessarily seem to define yourself as someone who is different than the other people, how have you carried that to where you are now, and what obligations, if any, do you feel towards anybody else as far as advice or recommendations for how they might treat others or themselves in that situation?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily mistreated when I was younger. It was more that I just didn't have the ability to appreciate the individuality of it, of being Asian. Now I celebrate it, which is also why like I got involved with the Jeremy Lin documentary, 38 at the Garden. I think it's important to spread that message to kids that, stereotypes can be broken. Like this is a Asian American basketball player that went to Harvard that dropped buckets on Kobe Bryant, and Carmelo like almost took Carmelo's starting spot. And that's possible. If that's possible, anything's possible.
All right, well, we're gonna pivot back to this lightning round here before we open it up to questions. So hopefully, folks have their questions ready. All right, favorite sports team? You mentioned dunking on Kobe.
Oh man, I'm not gonna make it out of here alive. But 49ers.
Then I'm afraid to ask this next one. Team you love to hate?
Team I love to hate, the Celtics.
Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi.
Didn't even hesitate.
No.
All right. Favorite band?
Favorite band? Nirvana.
All right. Good answer. Some Nirvana fans in the crowd. With one piece of advice you got that you didn't take that you wish you had?
Oh, geez. I'm starting to take it, so I'm making progress on it. It's focus on the mental side of business building. A lot of times, just caught in the KPIs, like what's revenue growth, what's user count, what's profitability, how many people have you hired, how much have you raised. It's a slog. Like I went into building Sleeper kind of delusional. I thought I would spend a year doing it, sell it for $1 billion. And so my first place that I got in the Bay Area had a rooftop jacuzzi, and I was living high at the time. And then quickly realized that no users were coming. And so I ended up living all over the Bay Area, 7 different places, including a garage, being almost dead broke, had a liver cancer scare where I couldn't even pay the hospital bills, and then ended up working for a venture fund on the side as an admin assistant while we were building the business. And that takes a huge financial and an emotional and mental toll. But the most important part is the mental part. Because if you're not fully there mentally, that's what causes you to make really bad decisions. It also causes people to just give up and quit. And so I wish I would have known this earlier and meditated. I wish I would have spent time with family outside of work and not just kind of continue to chase the next KPI and the next fundraise. I wish I would have taken more vacations and been more outdoors, because ultimately you need balance, and balance is what creates the best versions of ourselves and the most functional versions of ourselves.
I think you probably answered my next question to a certain extent. Is how do you know when to stop, reflect, and potentially pivot? Right, you're looking at Sleeper's success. Things are going well. You're continuing to grow your user base, expand into new markets, and there's a voice in your head that says we need to change something. How do you know when to listen to that voice or when to slog ahead as you are?
Yeah, it differs at different stages. If you're in early stages, you'll know when you lose passion for what you're doing, or you keep running into roadblocks and you're just like, I can't figure it out. And those are typically good inflection points to try to revisit new ideas. Later on, your users will tell you. They'll yell at you like in full force. Like, so if we have a product that they don't like or a design they don't like, I hear it about on Twitter.
Are you suggesting people on the internet have opinions?
Oh, jeez.
All right, I'm going to open this up to Q&A here in just 1 minute, but the last question for you, Nan, before we open it up. One piece of advice for the aspiring entrepreneurs, CEOs in the room. You're speaking to yourself, at the precipice of making the decision to leave private equity, leave finance, and set off into the world, and traverse that vast ocean that we talked about. What do you tell yourself, knowing what you know now?
Be passionate about what you're building. That passion's going to get you through a lot of really hard times. Leverage your community. Like, learn from people that you're inspired by, that have done, that have been successful before you, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. And then finally, like, seize the moment. And if you have a good idea, don't wait on it, because somebody else will probably do it.
Well, let's learn from this community then, and seize the moment. Questions for Nan? Anybody have anything that they would like to learn? Yeah. Go ahead.
My name is Christian Kim. My question is, well, I'm building a friendship community app for gyms, and we're at 2 gyms right now, and we're early stage. Thinking back from your early stage building your company, how do you kind of navigate trying to get your first 1,000 users, and if you're non-technical, like, how do you keep your founding team to keep building?
I think even before you think about your first 1,000, I think it's important to understand your first 10 and spend a whole lot of time with them. I think what you'll find in that process is that most ideas people will like, not love. Most ideas people will dislike, not hate. And in those deep conversations with your first 10, you will find the opportunities on the fringes, on the extremes. And those opportunities on the extremes are what create groundbreaking companies. And a lot of companies fail in that because they are expected to hyper scale. Once you take venture capital, you're expected to go from 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000. And what you do then is you create mediocre products along the way that don't necessarily solve deep-rooted issues for people. If you establish that foundation really early on, it will instill that kind of customer-centric and product-focused culture into your team, and it will create defensibility as you scale, so that other companies will have a harder time catching up with you. On the non-technical founder side, I am a non-technical founder. It's important to recognize that every single person at the company has a value to provide at different points in time. And you might not be the most important to the company today. You may be tomorrow. You may be 10 years from now. And to celebrate the people who are valuable in the moment and give them the autonomy to make those decisions. When I started the company, I failed at fundraising, even though that was my only job to do, and I couldn't code. So I went to Stanford and I took some classes on Python, and then I tried to code just to show that I could contribute. Spent 3 months on it, delivered the code to my co-founders, and they were like, there's a library for this. It would have taken like 30 minutes for us to do it. But But what that did was it showed the appreciation and the recognition that it's a team effort. And they didn't let me code anymore, so I poured coffee and I took out the trash and did everything else that I could until I was useful again. So do that and support people.
Other? Yeah, is there a question?
Nan, thank you so much for the insights that you've shared with us and for doing it with so much vulnerability and humility. Even those of us not on an entrepreneurial journey, like this has been really a very wise discussion to hear you share your insights. I know nothing about sports, so this might be very obvious, but I have been wondering since I first heard about this talk, where did the name Sleeper come from? What does that mean?
Yeah. Great question, and thank you for asking that. And thank you for the kind words. Sleeper in sports is the player or the team that nobody expects, but that comes out of nowhere to help you win. And for us, the way we came up with the name was we wanted something that was gender neutral because we wanted to connect the world over sports. And a lot of other sports apps were like DraftKings or like something super like male oriented, and we wanted to stay away from that. And so we went with kind of a lot more gender neutral, but also something that was like representative of who we were. We were four friends in a garage trying to take on ESPN, and wanted to do it in a way where they wouldn't see us coming.
I have one here, and then you. I have a question about esports.
Yeah.
Sleeper, now the conversations I take it are mostly about physical sports. What do you see as the future popularity, not just for players, but for audience and bettors, perhaps, of esports? Do you perceive that they'll ever be talking about the E-leagues as they talk now about the NFL?
Yeah, I think gaming and esports have very bright futures in terms of consumer interactions and the number of people that will participate. I think the last stat I heard was that gaming is about 6 times the revenue of film and music combined, which is astronomical, and it's only growing. I think with AI revolution creating more free time for people, we're going to have more time to participate in gaming as well. And so you're going to see much more widespread adoption of people playing physical or playing games. The issue with the industry right now is there's not a revenue model that has been successful tied to it. And that's still being figured out. In traditional sports, you don't have this concept of publishers. Publishers in gaming control a lot of the revenue rights. And so then little filters down to the teams and to the players. And so without a balanced ecosystem where everybody can make money, you kind of get a collapse of the economy. If you don't have players, you don't have teams. You don't have teams, you don't have sponsorships. You don't have sponsorships, you don't have a reason for people to exist. And so when they figure that out, I think you'll see a boom in the esports as an organization or as a federation, similar to kind of professional sports. But the youth and the individual participation will continue to grow.
So my question is really, why did you decide to start with American football as opposed to the most popular sport in the world, soccer, which you've taken on now, or the best sport in the world, cricket?
I'll take it you're probably from the UK or South Africa or... I think for us, it was realizing that initially operate in the markets where you see the ripest opportunity for disruption. So to do soccer and cricket and baseball and everything else, we had to prove a new game format even worked and that the TAM was there for us to capture and the distribution strategy globally. For football, all we had to prove was that we had a product that was superior. And that would be a good entry point or Trojan horse into building repetitions on game design and release cycles and understanding how users would interact with our app so that we can then take those learnings and minimize the iterations it took to launch the other products on the platform. But yes, cricket is coming at some point.
Donald, I was going to ask about cricket. 2.5 billion fans around the world. I'm one of them. My name is Meghna. I'm a professor in the School of Economic Political Policy Sciences here at UTD, also associate provost. I loved how inclusive your designing process is. You know, you brought in non-gamers, you brought in women, and the logo clearly shows that, so I loved it. I just want to go on the dark side of this. So I'm a mom, also don't understand, like Erin said, anything about sports. But I have a 10-year-old who's a diehard soccer fan. He's probably at soccer practice right now. I wish I could bring him here to this talk. But as a parent, you know, I see kids his age are just glued to their phones. Gaming is like the big thing. He's grounded right now, so he's not supposed to be doing anything on the phone. For about 2 months, we grounded him because of AI issues, right? I mean, just things. So I do worry as a parent and for other parents. I do want to ask, you know, what do you think about the dark side and then the future of this also for kids? And so I'm kind of, I love everything you're doing, of course, but I'm just on the other side.
That's an incredible question, and we could probably spend an entire day talking about ways where the gaming industry can improve, especially on youth engagement and protections around that. There's a lot of different models that have been tried globally. Like the Chinese government came out and did a outright ban on consoles for a couple of years, and then migrated to limiting to the number of hours that you could actually log on. That's on one extreme, and you can have a mandated environment where all gaming gets curbed in some way, shape, or form. I don't think that ever gets adopted here in the US, obviously, because we're a free country. So then it's incumbent on companies to have a moral compass as they build and design these games with a mindset that not all revenue and all growth is created equally. And that stems from the individual entrepreneur and the individual team. And I'll give you an example of how that's come up in our conversations over the years. Representative Chen Button came up here and talked about the legalization of sports betting and how that's propagated across the US and is a key discussion topic here in Texas. We have a large user base, and if we got into sports betting, we could be one of the biggest players in the US right out the gate. But is that the mission of the company, and can I get my team to coalesce and align around that? And we had that heart-to-heart. So like what ended up happening was during COVID, we had raised a round of capital, and we grew from, at the time it was 22 employees to 55 employees, and had no revenue. And the only way we could was we could either go into sports betting or launch a daily fantasy game at that scale to be able to generate enough revenue so that we wouldn't die, you know, as a company with no visibility on future fundraisers when all live sports flatlined for the year. And we spent 2 months talking about if we did it, how we would do it in a way where it's not harmful for consumers. And we realized that if we were able to, you know, build a product in that space and people would, you know, be willingly coming to work, it had to satisfy a couple of things. It had to be about entertainment only. And we had to cap the amount of, you know, time and dollars people could put into the platform so that they're not risking losing their house or their car on our platform. We had to make it social so that it was more about the conversation with friends than the actual like daily fantasy wager you did yourself. And we had to not stand up a VIP program that reinforced people when they no longer wanted to play to try to bring them back into the ecosystem. And I think those are all really important things, and they're not every company is going to approach it the same way. You're going to have bad actor companies that are, you know, billions in market cap that all they care about is, you know, ARPU, average revenue per user, and they're going to feed every single thing into maximizing ARPU. But I think as consumers, you should look at what the company stands for and what they're trying to build and vote there as well. And as a founder, I have the obligation to continue to create opportunities and platforms like that succeed.
I have one last question. So
on the way over, I was driving Nan to Bubble Tea yesterday, and we were talking, and he had just met my parents, and everyone who knows and meets my parents loves them. They're amazing human beings. But he made he's so observant, and he's like, it's really amazing to see. And he's obviously, we've been a lot of successful entrepreneurs, business people, both our generation and the one before ours. And they're like, the fact that your parents are so successful and yet spend so much time giving back to the community is so inspiring, because a lot of people don't do that, right? A lot of people get rich and then they do their own thing. They, play golf all day and do their own, and especially I think the older generation, when they're so focused on survival, it's hard to think past yourself. And my parents have successfully done that. And, my question to Nan is that once you feel like you've made it, what would you like to do to give back to the community? What's your dream past building this company? What kind of impact and legacy do you want to make on a more societal level?
Great question, Carol. And yeah, I mean, I've been really inspired by the Chens, also Mr. Eisman here, and his contributions, and the Kratzes and their work in the community and the center, and many more administrators and professors here as well. And I think it all starts with education and creating spaces where the next generation can dream big and have the resources and the network and the mentors that can provide almost like a leg up when they're pursuing their dreams. And so one space I want to do, be a lot more involved in, is really around mentorship and coaching for not only kind of youth in their path into getting into good schools. And I actually started a nonprofit called the Boston Acorn Center, which was basically first-generation immigrants whose parents didn't go to college here, who went to public schools that were way over the ratio of guidance counselors to students, to help them think about how to navigate and prepare for college admissions. And when I left the country, that died on the vine. And it's been one of the deepest regrets that I've had, is that I've not kind of been able to reactivate that. I went straight into finance overseas and then came back and knee deep in Sleeper now. But I think back to that experience and the impact it had. We had 18 students that graduated the first year, 32 students that graduated the second year, and went on to Ivy League schools. And if we can recreate that and scale it, I think it would be something that I would love to do. The other thing is just like coaching and mentoring founders, because there's a lot of leverage in that space, and if you can create an environment where you're helping founders pursue noble missions, then the world gets better products and better technology that can amplify in many more ways. And so I'd like to spend a lot of time on the angel side, advising people so they can make less mistakes than we did, and help it keep a North Star too.
Great, thank you.
And that may be a great place to leave it. On behalf of UTD, Nan, it's been an absolute pleasure, personally, professionally, have you here at the inaugural Charlie's Tech Talk. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your candor, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you to everyone here. Really, it was an honor to be a part of this experience.
So, as we conclude tonight's event, I want to thank all of our speakers and all of you for joining us in the celebration of innovation, leadership, and culture that enriches our community. The Center for Asian Studies at UTD plays a vital role in promoting understanding and engagement within the diverse cultures and events like Charlie's TED Talk that exemplify that mission. Dallas is a city that thrives on diversity and the contributions of individuals who harness technology to drive change. Innovators like Nan Wang are redefining how we connect through sports and technology, inspiring future generations to dream big and push boundaries. Together, we can continue to foster connections encourage dialogue, and empower one another in our pursuit of excellence. Thank you once again for being here tonight. And let's carry forward the spirit of community and collaboration as we strive forward for a brighter future together. Thank you.